Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's City Council meeting and tonight's Committee of the Whole meeting. The City Council meeting is called to order. I kindly ask our City Administrator to please take the roll call.
Bruno, Burkhart,
Burkhart here.
Ruby,
Ruby here.
Caven,
Here.
Kilberg,
Gilbert here.
Kosarog,
Pastorag here.
Maladra,
Ladder here.
Marks,
Mark's here.
McGowan,
Here.
Swanson.
Here.
We have 9 of the 10 council members joining us this evening. We always begin our council meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, and it's only fitting that our city clerk, who is joining us remotely and whose birthday is today, along with our colleague Alderman Swanson, whose birthday was Saturday, lead us in the pledge. Thank you, gentlemen. Yeah, I'm not sure he did either. Care to share with us what birthday? No, I'm just kidding. Ladies and gentlemen, as part of our duties during these unusual times, this meeting tonight is being conducted semi-virtually in compliance with the governor's executive orders limiting in-person gatherings to the lesser of 50 people or 50% of overall room capacity under Phase 4. For the City of Geneva Council Chamber, this provides for a maximum of 29 individuals who may attend in person. As such, you will note that aldermen are attending virtually and in person. Staff members are also participating virtually and in person. As a requirement of the Open Meetings Act, I am required to be physically present at the meeting location. This meeting may be viewed live stream on YouTube or the public access channel on AT&T channel 99, Comcast channel 10, and most immediately MetroNet channel 93, or by accessing the meeting directly through the link provided on the agenda. In addition, public comments may be submitted anytime during the meeting by emailing publiccomment@geneva.il.us. Please note, written comments received during the meeting will be acknowledged at the appropriate time and placed into the record of the meeting, but will not be read aloud during the meeting. Those wishing to comment through the virtual platform will be recognized at the appropriate time on the agenda. Any questions or comments? Very well. On to the agenda, ladies and gentlemen, for the City Council meeting. Item 3A, under public hearings, our friends from Northwestern Medicine Delnor Hospital are going to provide us with an update regarding COVID-19 and, in general, community impact. So we welcome our very special guests with us this evening, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Burns. Council members, thanks for the invitation to be with you tonight. My name is Dr. Jim Giblin. I serve as the Chief Medical Officer for Northwestern Medicine's Regional Medical Group, the employed physician group that provides the clinical care at 9 out of the 11 hospitals in our health system, including Delnor Hospital. My office is on that campus, and in a previous life when I was practicing, rather than wearing suits, I practiced urology in the western suburbs, including at Delnor Hospital. I want to start with a reminder that March 16, 2020, 1 year from tomorrow, was the date when Governor Pritzker issued his executive order that effectively shut down the state of Illinois. What a year it has been. A lot of suffering, a lot of confusion, a lot of turmoil. But I want to start with a shout out to the caregivers, the frontline staff at Delnor Hospital and across this country who have selflessly and tirelessly given of themselves to help patients and families manage through this incredible pandemic. And secondly, want to give an appreciation, a recognition of the citizens of Geneva for the ways they have shown support in small and large ways to our nurses, our physicians, and everybody in the health system. So on behalf of them, thank you for that. Ben, if you could go to the next slide. I'm going to give a brief overview of COVID-19, and I'll remind us all that we could spend the entire meeting talking about COVID-19, so I'm going to, just in the next few minutes, give kind of a high-level overview. Next slide, Ben, please. Starting with next slide. A reminder of what it's been like to manage through a once-in-a-century global pandemic. Talk a little bit about COVID, both nationally, in the state, and closer to home here in Kane County and Geneva. We'll look a little bit at Del Nor and how they've managed through COVID and look at some of the data. And then finally, the vaccination efforts, which are front and center of everybody's minds today. Ben, if you could go to the next slide, please. So we talk about COVID-19 being the worst public health crisis in 100 years. Well, if you look at that crisis 100 years ago known as the Spanish flu, there are a lot of parallels, and yet there are some stark differences as well. The Spanish flu affected approximately 1/3 of the world's population, 500 million people, including 34 million cases in the U.S. out of a population base of about 100 million at that time. 675,000 Americans died at that time. Worldwide, the estimate is between 20 and 100 million. A very important contrast, however, is that in the Spanish flu, 99% of those who died were younger than 65 years of age, with half of them being between the ages of 20 and 40. Compare that to COVID, where the number of known cases is comparable, the number of deaths is comparable, but the vast majority of our deaths are in the older population over the age of 75, and only 1.6% in that same age group. The other thing of note is that our population base now of about 330 million, so it's only about 8% of the American population today versus 33% a century ago. Both of those pandemics occurred in waves. We had the initial wave last spring at this time, and we're now on the back end of the third wave and hope there'll be no fourth wave as there was in the Spanish flu. And another important distinction is that 85% of those with COVID do not require hospitalization. And I would further add that of the 29 million known cases, that dramatically underestimates the number of people who've had COVID. You'll remember back in the early days, we didn't have adequate access to testing. It was very frustrating to us. A lot of patients were fearful of coming in, and a lot of patients had minimal symptoms, so they lived through it and maybe were never diagnosed. So that number is actually quite a lot higher than the 29 million we know. Del Nor Hospital took care of the first COVID patient in our health system, with that patient admitted March 9th of a year ago. And again, tonight we'll share a little bit about what that last year has been like. Ben, next slide, please. So just some high-level reminders about COVID. This was a novel virus, a new virus to the planet Earth. And as such, we had nothing to compare it to. We did not know how it was transmitted in the early days. We didn't know who was affected versus not affected. We didn't know what the natural history would be of the disease, nor did we really know how to treat it or what were the appropriate public health measures at that time. Even today, we're learning new things about the coronavirus. On top of that, I think it's fair to say it happened in the middle of the most polarized political climate in our nation's recent history. And from the very outset, we had people in multiple camps, and it affected our approach to vaccinations and to testing and to what treatments were appropriate or inappropriate. And it really complicated our ability to speak with a unified voice about public health. Just an acknowledgement of that. I think we've all lived through that. Over the last year, our knowledge of COVID-19 has dramatically increased. We now have a clear understanding of how it's transmitted. We understand the importance of public health measures like masking and physical distancing and hand hygiene and the like. We have developed really good ways to treat patients so that the mortality rate today for all known cases has gone from upwards of 18 to 20% at the onset to about 1.8% today. And again, as I mentioned, since the number of cases really underestimates how many patients had COVID, the mortality rate is probably closer to 1% or just below that. Now that's 10 times as high as the annual flu, but nevertheless, 1% a lot better than where we started a year ago. Across the country, I think you're aware, we've seen dramatic declines in the number of cases and hospitalized patients and deaths since January. In our own state, that trend began just before Thanksgiving, so we didn't see the expected and feared for surge after Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, thank God. So today I think it's fair to say our optimism and our confidence is at the highest point it has been in a year. Number one, we've seen those decreasing trends. Vaccines are beginning to roll out in real numbers. And the goal here is to achieve the so-called herd immunity, where enough of our population has either natural immunity or vaccine immunity to essentially extinguish the COVID virus, or at least make it more like the annual flu, something that we deal with, that we have booster vaccination shots and so forth. So next slide, please. So locally in Illinois, we've had about 1.2 million, again, known cases. Deaths across this state, almost 21,000. By my calculation, 38 of those had Geneva as their primary residence. The recovery rate north of 98%. It bears repeating. The overwhelming majority of patients who are afflicted with COVID will recover. Now, some recover in a short time, and some have some very long-term side effects, which we'll talk about briefly. But in this state, we've decreased by 82% since Thanksgiving, the number of cases, and thank God for that we hope that trend continues. In Kane County, there have been about 51,000 cases, and here in Geneva, north of 4,200 cases. The mortality rate for Geneva residents is today 0.88% overall, so better than the national population. Next slide, please, Ben. Delnor Hospital, again, in addition to taking care of the first patient with COVID, have taken care of just under 1,000 COVID inpatients since March of last year, with about 100 of those admitted to the intensive care unit. Thankfully, the vast majority of them have been discharged, and notably about 60% of those inpatients discharged to home, 40% discharged to either a skilled nursing facility or home with services or other facilities because of the lingering side effects and sequelae that have impacted patients for months and months. There have been 59 deaths due to COVID at Delnor Hospital, the overwhelming majority of those in the first wave last spring, very few over the last several months. And the average age of our admitted patients at Delnor, a little younger than nationally, about 64 years old, slightly higher number of male patients admitted than females. And the overall mortality rate for the hospitalized patients at Delnor is 6.6%. Dramatic reduction from where it was a year ago and well below the national average overall. So I think we can be proud of the care being delivered to the sickest of the sick at Delnor Hospital. Next slide, please, Ben. So among our own population, we're moving to vaccination now. We're proud to say that 75% of Delnor employees have opted in for the vaccine. That's nearly 100% of the physicians on staff at Delnor. 18% have opted out. They're sitting on the sidelines. Either they want to wait and see, or they don't believe they're at risk, or some combination of reasons, and 7% still undecided. We have fully vaccinated 87% of those who've said we want to be vaccinated. And we've been vaccinating patients in our communities since the day that the emergency use authorization for the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines were first granted. And to date, actually about a week or so ago, nearly 6,000 Kane County residents have been vaccinated within Northwestern Medicine. And the only reason that's not higher is the limited availability of vaccine. Now, thankfully, even though we've only received about 4,800 total doses from Kane County's health department, 1,200 additional Kane County residents have been vaccinated because they can move between any of our sites to receive their vaccine. And I'll leave you with this thought. We are very optimistic because we are now starting to see the production of Pfizer and Moderna and the newest Johnson & Johnson vaccine really ramping up to the point where we're confident we will be able to vaccinate everyone who wants to be vaccinated within the next 3 months. And again, so much of that depends on vaccine supply, but we're really starting to see it. Just for context, we went the last 4 weeks with no doses of vaccine for first dose patients in the western suburbs. This week we've seen a significant increase, and we hope it'll continue moving forward. So I appreciate the invitation to be with you. I thank you again on behalf of the Delnor Hospital community for your great support, and we hope we're not back talking about a pandemic anytime soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gilman.
Thank you, Dr. Giblin, and good evening. My name is Rob Christie. I'm the Senior Vice President of External Affairs at Northwestern Medicine. Mayor Burns, members of the council and staff, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Many of you I've had the opportunity to meet with one-on-one over the last 4 or 5 years and go over some of the data I want to present tonight. But I thought we'd use this as an opportunity just to update the impact that Del Norte Hospital has in your community and that we're very proud of. We're very proud of the relationship that has been developed over the years and continues. We continue to be the largest employer in the city of Geneva. This slide gives you an indication of where we're at. We're almost 1,600 employees, which puts us as the lead. Next slide, Ben. When you take a look at healthcare hiring and healthcare employment, there's a factor of 1.4. For every hospital job, there's an increase of 1.4 jobs out in the community in other capacity, whether it's laundry, servicing the hospital, or other types of industries like that. So our overall impact in the community is not just the 1,600 that we have at the hospital, but an additional 2,200 throughout the community. Now that's obviously in a larger geographic region than just Geneva itself, but they would be in the geographic greater Geneva area. Next slide. So we generate, and this is a surprise to a lot of people, we generate over $2.7 million in taxes and fees to the city of Geneva. And this is a breakdown of how those taxes and fees are collected. Real estate taxes of about $120,000. We pay natural gas tax, electricity tax, and other water fees, electricity fees, for a total of $2.7 million. So for those who say we don't pay for our services, this is obviously an indication that we, in fact, do pay for those services. Next slide, Ben. We pay over $1.74 million in property taxes. So there are about 11 properties in the community that we continue to pay property taxes on. As you know, hospitals in general, not-for-profit hospitals like Northwestern and all of our 11 hospitals in our system are not-for-profit, are exempt from property taxes. Even with that, we've decided and continue to pay property taxes on a number of parcels in your community, and we think that will continue for the near future. So the amount of property taxes paid represents about 2% of all property taxes in the city in 2019, while we represent about 1.59 or 1.6% of the overall property in the city. So we are, I think, paying our fair share, even though the hospital itself is not on the property tax rolls. Next slide. So this is what we call our teeter-totter slide. In 2012, the state of Illinois passed legislation that specified what does a hospital have to do to maintain its property tax exemption. The taxpayers ought to know very specifically that they're getting something in return. If the hospital's not going to pay property taxes, and in many cases it's a large capital plant, if they're not going to pay property taxes, what are they going to give the taxpayers in return? So the legislature drew up, if you do A, B, C, and D that equals or exceeds what your property tax payments could or would be, then you get to be continued exempt from property taxes. Currently, the hospital, the main building, is assessed at our property taxes would be approximately $1.7 million. What do we do that get to be added into those buckets that the legislature said are things you can demonstrate to the taxpayers that they're getting a return for your dollars? Unreimbursed Medicaid and charity care are the significant payers here. $12 million for unreimbursed Medicaid. Unreimbursed charity care is almost $2 million. But you see the total of that is $14.5 million versus the property tax that we would be paying if we were on the property tax rolls of $1.7 million. So that's how we equalize, or that's how we demonstrate to the taxpayers that they are getting a value for us being off the property tax rolls. Next slide. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention over the last 3 years is we've put together a family residency program at Del Norte. It's the third location that Northwestern Medicine has done this. We did it at a hospital downtown Chicago. We've done it at our hospital in Lake Forest and Delnor was the third installation. So we bring in 8, as you know, we're a medical teaching hospital. We bring in 8 residents a year to Delnor who are going to be family practitioners who will do a 3-year residency. And the first class will be graduating this year, and hopefully, and as the case has been at our other 2 locations, we have a very, very strong retention rate of the people who go through that program, graduate, and stay in that community where they serve their residency. We think that same thing will hold true here in this community as well. So we're very proud of that. We've got the full complement of 24 residents going on now. And as I say, as that first class graduates, another 8 come on, we'll be at a full complement of 24 residents throughout the future as we move on. So those are new doctors coming to your community on an annual basis. And if the case holds true here that we've seen in the other locations, many, if not most of those, will stay in this location. We're very proud of that. And finally, the last slide, this is just a list of other programs and events that we get engaged in on an annual basis here in the community that we're very proud of. You guys are very familiar with this list. Our sponsorship of Swedish Days, our Living Well Cancer Resource Center, and then many of the other donations that we make to numerous organizations throughout the community. So with that, that completes our presentation tonight. I think Dr. Giblin and I would be happy to take any questions that you might have, Mayor, or the members of the council.
I will be happy to open up the questions to our council members joining us virtually. If anyone has a question or a comment to make, just either wave your hand and I'll recognize you accordingly. There you are. Anyone here in the chamber? Alderman McGowan.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation, and also thank you to you, Dr. Giblin. The Northwestern campus in Geneva always seems to be kind of growing and expanding and doing new things. What is on the horizon at this point, if anything? I know that COVID has obviously been a setback, probably in many ways, but I was just wondering if there was anything that is going on that might be of interest.
Nothing major. We did do some expansion over the last couple of years, as you mentioned, purchased a couple buildings that were already there on that campus, and we've also done some capital improvements at the hospital itself, which you may have noticed, but no major capital expansion plans at this point in time. It doesn't mean that in the future there won't be needs necessary to bring capital expansion, but right now, nothing big is on the horizon.
Oh, good to know. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Christie, following up on Alderman McGowan's question, could you share with us very briefly the developments that have taken place over, let's say, the last decade in terms of the dollar amounts invested just in capital?
Yeah, Mayor, that's a good question. It's obviously in the tens of millions. I don't have the exact number itself, but just look at the cancer center that's on the campus. Look at the fact that we redid the emergency department. We've expanded the hospital and modernized it. A couple of the outbuildings around the campus that we've purchased. So it's easily in the tens of millions of dollars, but I don't have a direct number. I can get that for you.
Oh, no, that's fine. And how many babies are born annually at?
Jim, do you know that one?
Don't know the exact number. Every one of them is born there, I know that.
It's significant.
There are a lot, yes. This community kicks out the babies.
That'll be the headline tomorrow. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone remotely, questions or comments for our guests?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. And by all means, gentlemen, Anne Marie, feel free to sneak out if you need to. So,
Thank you.
okay? We just ask that you leave your credit cards on the way out. Item 4, folks, amendments to the agenda. Are there any amendments from any member of the council this evening? Item 5 is the Omnibus agenda. All items marked with an asterisk are considered to be routine and can be considered and voted upon with one motion. Is there such a motion? Alderman Swanson makes the motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second? seconded by Alderman
Second.
McGowan. Any questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, Ms. Dawkins, please take the roll.
Burkhart,
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby,
Ruby, I.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Gilbert, aye.
Kosrog,
Kasserag, aye.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye. The omnibus agenda has been adopted and passed with 9 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 1 absent. We skip down to item number 10, municipal bills for payment, and we kindly ask our city administrator to please read the bills in their aggregate for our consideration.
Municipal bills for payment total $4,167,703.18.
Because Alderman Bruno is not with us tonight to make the motion, I dare anyone else to make that motion just like he does. Alderwoman Burkhart.
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to pay the bills as read by the city administrator. The items that add up to that amount can be found in the city's packet on the city's website.
Fantastic. Is there a second to Alderwoman
Oh.
Burkhart's motion? Seconded by Alderman Swanson. Any questions regarding those bills? Ms. Dawkins, please take the roll.
Ruby,
Ruby, I.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Gilbert, aye.
Kosrog,
Kasserag, aye.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson,
Aye.
Burkhart.
Burkhart, aye.
The municipal bills for payment have been approved with a vote of 9 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 1 absent. We jump down to, ready for this, folks? Item 12A, consider approval of resolution number 2021-14, authorizing staff to publish an updated 2021 City of Geneva zoning map. Is there a motion?
Kasserag, so moves.
Alderman McGowan got it. Alderman Swanson got the second. Any questions or comments? Oh, we have a preamble first from Ms. Dawkins, then we'll entertain questions or comments.
Okay, so under Illinois state law, the City of Geneva is required to publish updates to the official zoning map on an annual basis. The updated zoning map incorporates annexations and zoning map amendments that have been formally approved by the City Council since the downtown zoning update was completed in August 2019. In particular, you will notice 4 changes. 1, the city purchased property at 1 North 384 that was annexed to the city and zoned RR under ordinance 2019-25. Number 2, the Kramer property was annexed to the city and zoned I-1 Light Industrial, ordinances 2020-22 and 2020-23. Number 3, the property located at 15 Woodlawn Street was rezoned from B3E Business District to the R3 Medium to High Density Single Family District, ordinance 2020-30. And lastly, the Nelson property was annexed to the city and zoned RR Rural Single Family Residential District through ordinance 2021-02. And again, this is just a requirement by state. All of the changes were previously adopted by this city council. Director DeGroot is with us this evening if you have any additional questions.
Questions or comments for either Director DeGroot or City Administrator Dawkins? Seeing none remotely, seeing none in the chamber, please take the roll call. In item 12A.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Gilbert, aye.
Kosrog,
Kasserag, aye.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson,
Aye.
Burkhart,
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby.
Ruby, I.
Item 12A has been approved with a vote of 9 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 1 absent. Item 12B, ladies and gentlemen, consider approval of resolution number 2021-15 related to temporary outdoor dining. Is there a motion? Alderman
Kasserag,
Swanson
so
makes the
moved.
motion. Alderman Kasserag makes the second. Ms. Dawkins?
Okay, so at present, you're aware that Kane County, along with the rest of the state, is operating under the Restore Illinois Phase 4 plan that limits indoor occupancies for a number of business types, including restaurants and bars. With the warmer weather approaching, we expect restaurant and bar operators to seek opportunities to expand seating outdoors on public or private property, much like we did last summer. The resolution for your consideration establishes that criteria, submission requirements, and procedures for such approvals. The regulations are similar to those that we implemented last year with a few modifications to address some of the concerns. Those, again, were enumerated in your packet, so if you have any additional questions, Economic Development Director Timoshenko is here. I would also note that we are recommending that any expanded temporary outdoor seating would expire 15 days after the first day of Kane County entering Phase 5 of the Restore Illinois Plan, or October 1st, 2021, whichever occurs first. And I would note that the 15 days is the language consistent with the guidelines issued by the State of Illinois Liquor Control Commission. They've made some relaxing in their requirements to allow for outdoor dining and seating, so we want to be consistent with that. So again, Director Timoshenko is here if you have any additional questions.
Questions or comments for our City Administrator, Ms. Dawkins, or our Director of Economic Development, Ms. Timoshenko? Seeing none virtually, seeing none and sensing none here in the chamber. Roll call vote, Ms. Dawkins?
Kilberg,
Gilbert, aye.
Kasserag,
Kasserag, aye.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson,
Aye.
Burkhart,
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby,
Ruby, aye.
Caven.
Aye.
Item 12B has been adopted with 9 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 1 absent. Item 12C, folks, is consider approval of ordinance number 2021-05, adding 1 Class A5 liquor license for Barrel and Rye located at 477 South 3rd Street. Is there a motion? So moved. Alderman Caven makes that motion.
Second.
Alderman Swanson makes the second. Ms. Dawkins?
Okay, so Barrel and Rye Restaurant has submitted an application for a Class A5 liquor license that would authorize the retail sale for consumption off-premises only of specialty packaged alcohol or spirits sold by the bottle, wine sold by the bottle or case, and craft beer sold by the pack or case, with such sales not exceeding 5% of the gross dollar sales of the restaurant. And again, their application has been reviewed and recommended for approval.
Questions or comments for the city administrator? Sensing none and seeing none virtually here in the chamber. Ms. Dawkins, please take the roll.
Kasserag,
Kasserag, aye.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson,
Aye.
Burkhart,
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby,
Ruby, aye.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg.
Gilbert, aye.
Item 12C has been approved with a vote of 9 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 1 absent. We are at the point of the meeting for new business by the council members. Any new business anyone would like to share? How about public comment? I'll first ask anyone in the audience, any public comment at all? I can hear you breathing. Anyone joining us, Ben, who would like to comment?
No.
Thank you for that dramatic response. Ms. Dawkins, anything? Ladies and gentlemen, for the city council meeting, we are at the point of accepting a motion to adjourn. Alderman McGowan makes the motion to adjourn. A roll call vote is in order. Ms. Dawkins, please take the roll.
Burkhart,
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby,
Ruby, aye.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Gilbert, aye.
Kasserag,
Kasserag, aye.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
We are adjourned from the city council meeting. We'll begin the committee of the whole meeting momentarily. The microphones are being turned off. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's committee of the whole meeting is called to order. A roll call vote would be in order. Ms. Dawkins?
Bruno, Burkhart,
Burkhart here.
Ruby,
Ruby here.
Caven,
Here.
Kilberg,
Gilbert here.
Kosarog,
Osterog here.
Maladra,
Maladra here.
Marks,
Marks here.
McGowan,
Here.
Swanson.
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, item 2 is to approve the Committee of the Whole minutes from March the 1st, 2021. Is there a motion to approve? Alderman Cavan makes that motion. Is there a second? Alderman McGowan makes the second. Any questions or comments regarding the content of those minutes? Ms. Dawkins?
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson. Bruno, oh, sorry. Burkhart,
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby,
Ruby, aye.
Cavan,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Gilbert aye.
Kosarog.
Osterog, aye.
Item 2 has been adopted with 9 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 1 absent. Items of business, folks. Item 3A is to consider draft resolution authorizing the purchase of 6 3M Scott AirPack X3 Pro self-contained breathing apparatus units in the amount of $36,786 for finance, no, for the fire department personnel. Is there a motion? Alderman McGowan makes the motion. A second would be in order. Second. Alderman Cavan, thank you, sir. Ms. Dawkins?
Okay, so as stated, the request is to purchase 6 replacement self-contained breathing apparatus units to replace older air packs that have reached the end of their frontline operational life. There was only one quote presented, as 3M Scott maintains the exclusive territorial distributorships in the U.S. and does not participate in governmental buying cooperatives. We do have Chief Antonori with us virtually if there are any additional questions. Otherwise, that's it.
Great. Any questions or comments for our fire chief, Mr. Antonori, or the city administrator, Ms. Dawkins? Seeing none and sensing none, a roll call vote would be in order.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson,
Aye.
Burkhart,
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby,
Ruby, aye.
Cavan,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Gilbert aye.
Kosarog,
Osterog, aye.
Maladra.
Maladra, aye.
Item 3A has been adopted and advanced to the city council meeting, next scheduled, with 9 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 1 absent. Item 3B is to consider draft resolution authorizing the city administrator to execute the master lease purchase agreement with PNC Equipment Finance in an amount not to exceed $1,136,599 for Pierce Fire Truck financing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Alderman Swanson makes the motion. Was that Alderman Burkhart? Alderwoman Burkhart, excuse me, made the second. Ms. Dawkins?
Okay, so the request is for approval of a tax-exempt master lease agreement with PNC Bank to provide funding for the Pierce pumper truck that was authorized for purchase and/or lease by the city council earlier this month. The lease provides for a 3% discount on the price of the truck, combined with a 7-year lease rate at a rate of 2.25%. We did obtain a quote from another lender, and their interest rate was 1.89%. But if you compare the two rates with the discount on the truck, the net cost with PNC is approximately $20,000 less. The first payment would not be due until we have final delivery of the truck, and I do have, again, both Chief Antonori and Finance Director Cruz available virtually if there's any questions.
Any questions at all for either the city administrator, our Director of Finance, Ms. Cruz, or our Fire Chief, Mr. Antonori? Seeing none remotely and seeing none here in the chamber, Ms. Dawkins, please take the roll.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson,
Aye.
Burkhart,
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby,
Ruby, aye.
Cavan,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Gilbert aye.
Kosarog,
Osterog, aye.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks.
Marks, aye.
Item B has been approved and advanced to the city council with 9 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 1 absent. Item C, folks, item 3C is to consider draft resolution authorizing the appointment of Aaron Holton as the City of Geneva's representative to the Northern Illinois Power Agency Board. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Alderwoman Burghardt made the motion. Second. Alderman McGowan made the second. Ms. Dawkins.
Okay, so pursuant to ordinance 2004-50, the mayor appoints city representatives to serve on the Northern Illinois Power Agency Board of Directors. In May 2021, the current city representative, Hal Wright, will retire. The appointment of Aaron Holton as the city representative to the NIMPA Board of Directors would ensure uninterrupted representation of the city's interests. We do have Director Babica in the room this evening to answer any additional questions you may have.
Any questions for our Director of Public Works, Mr. Babica, or the City Administrator, Ms. Dawkins, regarding item 3C? And just for the record, folks, it should read Northern Illinois Municipal Power Agency. Seeing no questions, sensing no questions, Ms. Dawkins, please take the roll.
Swanson,
Aye.
Burghardt,
Burkhardt, aye.
Ruby,
Ruby, I.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Gilbert, aye.
Kosarog,
Osterog, aye.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan.
Aye.
Item 3C has been advanced to the City Council with a vote of 9 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 1 absent. Item 3D is to consider approval of a certificate of completion for Oberweis at 2100 South Randall Road. Is there a motion? Alderman Caven, a big fan of the ice cream, makes that motion with such passion. Holy mother. Is there a second? From anybody dairy-free? Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Alderwoman Burghardt makes the second. Ms. Dawkins.
Okay, so the certificate of completion for the public is for the public water main and electric improvements for the Oberweis store. With the certificate of completion, the corresponding bond and rider supplied by Oberweis Dairy can be reduced to a 10% amount, and it will serve as a one-year warranty on the reference completed improvements. Again, we have Director Babica present to answer any questions you might have.
Questions or comments for Director Babica or Ms. Dawkins? Sensing none and seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
Burghardt,
Burkhardt, aye.
Ruby,
Ruby, I.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Gilbert, aye.
Kosarog,
Osterog, aye.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Item 3D, ladies and gentlemen, has been advanced to the City Council with a vote of 9 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 1 absent. Item 3E is to consider draft resolution authorizing the city administrator to execute a proposal from Clark Environmental Mosquito Management Incorporated of St. Charles, Illinois, to conduct the 2021 and 2022 mosquito abatement program in an amount not to exceed $50,538. Is there a motion?
Osterog, Marks, so so moved. move.
Alderman Kosarog makes the motion. Alderman Marks makes the second. Ms. Dawkins?
Okay, so the fiscal year '22 annual budget included $60,000 within the general fund to conduct mosquito abatement within the city. The proposal from Clark is an optional extension of the service contract approved by the City Council in 2015. Clark Environmental has provided mosquito abatement services for the city since 2014, and staff is confident in their ability and recommends the city exercise the contract extension option. Services include public education and outreach, monitoring, larval control, and adult side applications as warranted. And Director Babica is still with us this evening to answer any questions you might have.
Questions or comments regarding larval control? Seeing none? Sensing none? Ms. Dawkins, please take the roll.
Ruby,
Ruby, I.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Gilbert, aye.
Kosarog,
Osterog, aye.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson,
Aye.
Burghardt.
Burkhardt, aye.
Item 3E has been advanced to the City Council with a vote of 9 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 1 absent. Item 3F is to consider draft resolution authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Hampton, Lenzini, and Renwick Incorporated of Elgin, Illinois, for the 2021 and 2022 wetlands mitigation services for the Eagle Brook and on Brentwood's Pond subdivision in an amount not to exceed $40,600. Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
Alderman Kilberg makes the motion. Thank you, sir.
Second, Kasserag.
Alderman Kossarog makes the second. Ms. Dawkins?
Okay, so again, the fiscal year '22 budget provides funding within SSA number 11, Eagle Brook, and SSA number 32 on Brentwood's Pond to perform wetland management services. In 2020, the City Council approved a wetland management services contract with Hampton, Lenzini, and Renwick. The agreement included an optional second year dependent upon budgetary approval by the City Council. Their proposal includes conducting a site assessment for quality, issuing monitoring reports, invasive plant control, native plant installation, and 10 drainage channel maintenance treatments. Staff, local homeowners, and the Eagle Brook Golf Course owners have all been pleased with the previous work and the responsiveness to the issues. Director Babica is here still for questions, if you so desire.
Director Babica and Ms. Dawkins are available for questions or comments from the council, or excuse me, from the committee. Are there any? Ms. Dawkins, please take the roll call.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Gilbert, aye.
Kossarog,
Kasserag, aye.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson,
Aye.
Burkhart,
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby.
Ruby, aye.
Item 3F has been advanced to the City Council with a vote of 9 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 1 absent. Item 3G, ladies and gentlemen, consider draft resolution authorizing the city administrator to execute a restated and amended City of Geneva Level 3 Communications LLC license agreement. Is there a motion? Alderman McGowan makes the motion. Is there a second on the motion, ladies and gentlemen? Alderman Kossarog makes the second. Ms. Dawkins?
Okay, so in 2020, the City Council authorized the execution of a license agreement with Level 3 Communications LLC and a private fiber optic network provider to utilize the city's right-of-way in a limited area. They have since expressed a desire to amend that agreement to install their fiber optic cable in a different route within the city right-of-way. The agreement presented for your consideration limits the rights of Level 3 to install their fiber specifically as identified within the right-of-way as shown in Exhibit A, and revokes rights previously granted by the City Council in 2020. And Director Babica will be more than happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Questions or comments for Director Babica? Sensing none and seeing none, Ms. Dawkins, please take the roll.
Kossarog,
Kasserag, aye.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
Aye.
Swanson,
Aye.
Burkhart,
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby,
Ruby, aye.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg.
Gilbert, aye.
Item 3G is being advanced to the City Council with 9 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 1 absent. Item 3H, to consider draft ordinance amending Title 8, Public Ways and Property, Chapter 3, Utility Facilities Construction, Section 7, Insurance Bond, Subsection G, Bond, of the City of Geneva Code. Is there a motion?
Marks, so move.
Alderman Marks makes the motion. Thank you, sir.
Second,
Alderwoman Burkhart makes the second. Ms. Dawkins?
Okay, so current language in the Geneva City Code requires a $50,000 surety bond in order to obtain a right-of-way permit. Based upon feedback from residents and contractors, staff has determined that the $50,000 amount is above and beyond what typical work in the right-of-way would amount to if damaged. Research indicates that insurance companies typically charge $100 per $10,000 of bond coverage, which is then passed on to the resident and/or contractor, which ultimately goes to the resident. In an effort to provide excellent municipal services, staff recommends the requirement be reduced to either $10,000 or $20,000, depending upon the work to be done, under the discretion of the Public Works Director. By doing so, the residents and contractors will realize savings of up to $300 while city utilities are still protected. And this evening, we have with us in person and live, Administrative Analyst Badalico and Associate Engineer Davids are both present. I would note that I think Davids has just celebrated a one-year anniversary with us. So nice of him to be here this evening as well. And Franco, always a pleasure to see you too. So if there are questions, they are both here with us.
Questions or comments, ladies and gentlemen? Alderman McGowan.
May I ask, does this apply to residents who are looking to redo their driveway? Is this the main reason?
Exactly.
Okay, because I remember I received a phone call, maybe Alderman Caven, you did as well, from someone in our ward who thought that the costs of acquiring that permit, or the contractor, communicated that it seemed exorbitant at the time. So I'm actually really glad to see that this has been addressed.
That's exactly it. We've received.
Franco,
Sorry.
yeah, there you go.
That's exactly it. We received the same comments over the years, and we're finally passing this through to you. So that's what it'll cover.
That's great. Okay, well, I think that's really good news for the residents, especially people that are, planning on getting work done this spring and, going forward. So I'm really glad to hear this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the dais here in the chamber? Virtually? And this would take effect immediately upon passage at the city council meeting.
Correct.
Ms. Dawkins, please take the roll.
Maladra?
Maladra, aye.
Marks?
Marks, aye.
McGowan?
Aye.
Swanson?
Aye.
Burkhart?
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby?
Ruby, aye.
Caven?
Aye.
Kilberg?
Gilbert, aye.
Kosarog?
Pastor, aye.
The enthusiasm meter is like right about there. With a vote of 9 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, 1 absent, this item is advanced to the city council. Thank you, Franco. Item I, ladies and gentlemen. Consider draft resolution authorizing execution of an intergovernmental lease agreement between the City of Geneva and the Geneva Park District for lease of real property commonly referred to as Elm Street Park. Is there a motion? Alderman Swanson makes the motion. Is there a second? Second, Alderman Caven. Not nearly as exciting as the ice cream one, but
Okay. So the Geneva Park District and the city entered into an intergovernmental agreement in 2004 for the Park District's lease of the property commonly referred to as Elm Street Park from the city for the use as a neighborhood park with a playground. This agreement expired by its own terms, and the Park District and the city wish to extend the term of the leasehold for 15 more years. Article 7, Section 10 of the Illinois Constitution of 1970 and the Intergovernmental Cooperation Act authorized the Park District and the city to cooperate in the performance of their respective responsibilities by contract and other agreements. And I'm here this evening if you have any additional questions.
questions or comments for the city administrator? Alderman McGowan.
Thank you. I like Elm Park, or Elm Street Park. It's very pretty. It's right on the bike path there. I was wondering, how long has how many times has the lease agreement been renewed? And how long has this joint agreement been in place?
So, it's been in place, I have to do the math here, but ultimately, in 10 more years, it will have been in place for 50 years.
So, has the city considered just
Yeah, and those are.
moving the land over to the Park District ownership?
So those are conversations I've had with the executive director, so we wanted to go ahead and renew the lease so that we can start having those conversations, because there might be additional parcels around the park that we might be interested. Several years ago, they weren't interested, but now there's obviously been a change over there as well as here, and so we're going to reinstitute those discussions.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Please go visit Elm Park. It's very pretty. It's very nice. Thank you.
And any transfer would require relocating the nuclear warheads.
Try to get out there before the cicadas hit, because I think it'll be hit pretty hard. There's a lot of really beautiful mature trees there. Just public note.
Anyone else? Questions for the city administrator? on this matter? Ms. Dawkins, please take the roll.
Marks?
Marks, aye.
McGowan?
Aye.
Swanson?
Aye.
Burkhart?
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby?
Ruby, aye.
Caven?
Aye.
Kilberg?
Gilbert, aye.
Kasserag?
Pastor, aye.
Maladra?
Maladra, aye.
This item is being advanced to the City Council with 9 votes in the affirmative, 0 votes in the negative, and 1 absent. Folks, we're down to new business and public comment. Any new business by any member of the committee this evening? Public comment, anyone in the audience? Anyone online, Mr. McCready?
No.
Pete, please erase those 7 seconds of tape. Ms. Dawkins?
No.
No. In the spirit of physical and mental well-being, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Alderman Swanson makes the motion. Roll call vote, please.
Burkhart?
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby?
Ruby, aye.
Caven?
Aye.
Kilberg?
Gilbert, aye.
Kasserag?
Pastor, aye.
Maladra?
Maladra, aye.
Marks?
Marks, aye.
McGowan?
Aye.
Swanson?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. Be safe.